Welcome, everybody. So good to be here. Jessica and I decided to actually close and approach this talk as a ceremony. So I want to invite you into a very brief practice, if that's okay with you. Just want to acknowledge my sister, Jessica, for just the invitation to be here. I want to acknowledge my wife, and my son who are watching from New York City. And I want to acknowledge my ancestors as well. And take a moment to invite yours. Invite your answers into this space. Take a moment to just give gratitude for all the social relations, all the moments that were required and needed to make this moment happen. With that being said, I'd love to invite you into a contemplative practice, very briefly. So if you feel comfortable, just gently, just close your eyes. And sense into that powerful breath of yours. Gently inhaling, gently exhaling, activating what Mina called that sensuous knowledge. See if you can use the breath to metabolize this moment. See if you can use the breath to just touch how the last few days have been incredibly transformative. See if you can use the breath to become ever more present. Taking one more deep inhale together. And gently, I want you to give permission to yourself to slow down. Because part of structural love is actually shifting the clip and the speed with which we engage. So tonight, I invite you to slow down with us, gently opening your eyes back up. Bio says that the times are urgent, therefore, we must slow down. So with that, I'd love to invite Sister Jessica to open us up.
So Angel and I come from very different worlds. He comes from the world of contemplative practice, of healing-centered education, of restorative justice. I come from the world of CEOs, boards, big business. So imagine what it sounds like when I come to CEOs today and without the eloquence or poetry of Bio, also give the advice that in this time of urgency, we must slow down. And we must slow down because if we do not, we will rebuild the same structures with the same inequalities, with the same problems built into them again in this world which is emerging. Angel and I both believe that just as inequality, racism, every other ism you can imagine has been built into the foundational structures of so many of our organizations, forged in another time, so too can love be designed into our structures, designed into our organizations, designed into the way we work. It is a choice, it is a design challenge, but But it requires us to slow down and to actually give ourselves the space to turn into, to evolve into, to reconnect to our own humanity and build and be from a different place. So, for the CEOs that I work with, they are simultaneously holding the center, holding the core, holding what has been, trying to steer their gigantic global corporations, deliver shareholder value, all of this, holding the core, while also, for those of us who saw Brett and today, dancing on the edge in this unknown. And it is frightening. And it is also liberating. Big business is tackling this, holding the core while also transforming. But many organizations have been doing this much longer and designing from a place of love from the beginning.
You know, I just want to be public about this, that I'm only going to Mars when there's all-inclusive hotels. Just want to say that. You know, the House of Beautiful Business and concrete love, and therefore structural love, is actually within a particular paradigm that many scholars like myself call the healing-centered and restorative paradigm. I know we've held a lot of insight and knowledge throughout the last few days that might be a little bleak. Let me give you a little bit of good news. That deep down, there are many communities that are invested in actually developing more harmony with our planet, a sense of equilibrium with our planet and with each other. I mean, before we go to Mars, shouldn't we get it together here? So let me share just a couple of stories of how structural love has become manifest in some communities that I'm part of. I want to invoke my sister Shelly Tigielski. Now, Shelly just wrote a fascinating book called Sit Down to Rise Up. Interesting. Sit Down to Rise Up. And her thesis is that by engaging in deep meditation and deep self-care and actually tending to our own well-being, we can actually make space to make change that is a little bit more sustainable. And during the middle of the pandemic, when many of us were hurting emotionally, many of us were hurting psychologically and financially, Shelly and her team got the idea that how could they connect people who were struggling with their rent, struggling with their bills, with other people who just wanted to give. And through that very simple idea, they started to connect people who wanted to give with moral and financial support with people who needed it. And in a matter of months, they transferred $50 to $60 million, created almost 200 chapters around the world, 17 countries. And to this day, they have even chapters in Portugal and Spain. That is a manifestation of structural love, a love that goes deep, that penetrates the human psyche and structures. So my question to you all is, how can our organizations ooze structural love with our policies, with our practices? How many of you know about design thinking, human-centered design? Wonderful paradigms of design, yet they often leave out equity. And structural love from a design perspective invites us to think about designing for equity, designing for dignity, designing for belonging, designing for renewal. And speaking of renewal, I'll give you an example of a way that I tried to struggle with structural love in my own community. And during Juneteenth, which is a really fascinating holiday, new holiday in the United States, a couple colleagues of mine were asking the question, can we create a project where we would gift others the opportunity to rest? the opportunity to just chill. So we wrote a compelling description. We called it the Restored Warriors Project. And in a matter of a couple weeks, we raised almost $200,000. And when we were ready, we reached out to local activists who were working so hard. And we called them on Zoom, and we said, we want to give you $10,000 unconditionally for you to rest. Can you sense into that? Can you sense into the power that comes with providing someone access to the freedom to rest? So this is the kind of power that can come when we harness structural love. And Jessica is going to bless us with some examples from the business sector.
So, is it even the right thing to be asking, does love belong in business? Can a business love? Can it create the conditions for love? I'm still wrestling with this question. I would suggest for the world of big publicly traded corporations today, they might get there. Right now, we're starting with conversations around, let's actually clean up the harm. Let's actually start by building rest into our business models, care into our business models, compassion into our business models. And when I say business models, I mean the business model. It is not a metaphor. We need to start aligning big picture purpose with strategy, with operational systems, technology systems, all of this, the culture of organizations. I'll give just a couple quick examples of where this is happening. So I wouldn't put them all the way in structural love yet, but I would say there's some folks that are really designing for care. Mark Hoplamazian is the CEO of Hyatt, one of the most extraordinary leaders I've had the opportunity to work with over the years. Mark, who comes from an economics and finance and background, Mark has seen the incredible power of designing care into the business model. Every employee at Hyatt is recruited for, trained for, and supported in learning how to care for themselves, take care of themselves, take care of one another, take care of guests, of partners, of communities. The average housekeeper at Hyatt has been with Hyatt for 12 years. Most people working at Hyatt are referrals from other employees. The fundamental premise is if we care for our people, if our people care for themselves, and if they create the conditions for care, employee to employee, it is a ripple effect of goodness. It's good for people and it's good for the business. The middleware of organizations, the policies, the processes, the unsexy stuff, is where so much of this either comes together or falls apart. There's been a lot said at House of Beautiful Business about purpose and purpose washing. And I often think it's less about purpose washing and it's more about the disconnect between we believe these things, we care about these things, we stand for these things, and then the legacy processes that sit underneath that create a chasm of heartbreak, of pain, because they are not oriented to that bigger picture. What we pay people, compensation systems, HR systems, is one of the big places where this happens. And so some of our friends from Salesforce here, Justin McGuire, who spoke this morning, Salesforce has been really brave in leading the charge on looking at what do we say we care about, what do we actually value in terms of what we pay people. And in 2015, they started an audit of all of their compensation practices. They found that there was a discrepancy, predominantly among gender. Men were paid more than women, not all the time at all, but there were cases. And they took action. And they told other people. And they published the findings. And they committed to doing this year over year over year. They have spent over $16 million in rebalancing and ensuring that there is in fact equity across roles within Salesforce. At SYP, we are doing a lot of work on ourselves. I think of SYP as a lab, an incubator, and an experimental zone for building new ways of working with one another, new ways of being within SYP that we can then share with the world. We get some of it right, we get some of it very wrong, because we are actively trying not to replicate the old systems and create some space for emergence, for us to figure out how to be with one another, make money together, make impact together in a different way. And so Angel and I actually found each other through this work, and Angel is helping us really look at what is distributed leadership, what is holding vision while creating space for multiple people to hold it and work on it. What does leadership look like going forward? Because we are all going to have to reorient our own palettes for what leadership looks like. It is no longer going to be the single soul, charismatic leader on the stage making giant pronouncements, ironically, as I'm talking on a stage. But that's not it. It is going to be all of us and all of the people in the organization. And Angel's helping us look at that, rewire it into our structures.
You know, let's be real. The pandemic broke our hearts. So I want to acknowledge anyone here who's lost anyone to the pandemic. Just touch into the grief that comes with living during these times. But I also want to acknowledge that, especially in the United States, our hearts were broken. So rest in peace to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and the many other names whose name I don't have time to name, in response to the public murder of black life in public. You see, part of structural love is not this kind of fluffy, romantic thing, but rather a response to structural violence. It's a deep awareness of the ways in which trauma unfolds at individual level, interpersonal levels, institutional levels, even intergenerational levels. But based on some good research, my friends, we now know that actually healing can happen in one generation. Trauma can be transmitted 7 generations based on epigenetic research. But the fact that we know now that healing can happen in one generation is very powerful. Antonio Gramsci, in his prison notes, wrote that the condition for truth is to allow suffering to speak. And I think healing has a similar tone, that the condition for healing is to allow suffering to speak. And how many of us aren't carrying so much pain? So structural love is a direct response to the legacies of slavery, legacies of sexism, legacies of homophobia. So just wanted to be clear there that this is powerful work.
I want you, as we close, to feel in to the 5 minutes of looking in someone else's eyes that you might have done today. That feeling of connection, that feeling of letting something go in order to let something in. That is what leaders today, all of us today, are grappling with. What are we letting go in order to let come in? How are we slowing ourselves down to get ourselves the room to reinvent, to reimagine, to revision anew for all that's ahead for us? Feel into that space. The person sitting next to you may be your next soulmate. or business partner or provocateur. And then as you go out into Lisbon tonight and beyond, I want you to take the last 3 days with you. And I also want you to take love and put it in your pocket. And I'm going to tell you a very quick story. Anyone know what this is, my Portuguese friends? It's a calçada portuguesa. This is what makes up the streets and sidewalks of Lisbon and many other places throughout the world. The rock that I'm holding in my hand is ancient. It comes from a mountain in Portugal. But this particular one was laid about 100 years ago in Chiado, the neighborhood here. And it was polished by feet for 100 years, through World War I, through World War II, through revolution, through digital transformation, through COVID, to quite recently, when it was delivered to me and my love, who I met at the House of Beautiful Business 3 years ago. So it's possible. So these rocks, these stones, these were laid each individually by a human hand. Our feet have traversed over them for generations. There used to be hundreds and hundreds of these master calceteiros, the master stone layers here in Lisbon. Today, there are 10. It is a dying art. It is an art which deserves love. And when you exit today, you will see Mikhail, a wonderful human being who works closely with me, and you'll see baskets of these stones. And everybody is invited to take one. And take your little concrete love, structural love, home with you. And think, how might I go just a little bit slower? How might I go just a bit deeper? How might I connect just a little bit more as we, stone by stone, start building again?
And you'll see that each calçada has a QR code, so check the QR code with some resources. So I just want to close us out. Let's stand up. Let's stand up. Just want to thank Tim and Monica. I want to thank the House of Beautiful Business. You know, in the field of healing-centered education and restorative circles, we stand in circle. We come together in circles. And there's a saying that once a circle is made, it is never broken. Just take a moment to realize that this circle here will never be broken. We may never come together again in the same constellation, but this has been a special gathering. For many of us, like myself, the first in-person gathering that I engaged in during the pandemic. I've never been this intimate with a crowd. Mm-hmm. So I just want to thank you for that. My question that I want to leave with you, and I'd love for you to take your right hand and just place it right over your heart. Just sense into that. Just sense into that. Take your left hand, put it in your little belly. Just sense into the gut intelligence, that sensuous knowledge, that yes, climate change is real. Yes, racial and gender and sexual and orientation and oppression when it comes to our LGBTQ community is real. Inequality is real. Political polarization is real. All of those daunting challenges that seem impossible, they all are real. My question to you is, how do we make structural love not just inevitable, but irresistible? And that's what concrete love should teach us. Thank you all so much. Yeah.